I didn't expect to wake up and find my truck gone. But that's exactly what happened on a bitter cold Tuesday morning in February. I live in a quiet neighborhood tucked against the Colorado foothills, a place where people wave at you on the street and sip black coffee on their porches. It's also governed by an HOA petty one. You know the kind. Grass an inch too high? Fine. Christmas lights still up on January 2nd? Warning letter. But this was war. I stared at the oil stains left on my driveway like they were blood. My 2021 Dodge Ram 2500 was gone. Towed. Not stolen. Hauled off by the HOA without a damn word. I stormed into the HOA office 20 minutes later, clutching my coffee mug and rage like weapons. Karen was there. You know the type. Blonde bob, pastel sweater, pearls, fake kindness. "Morning, Mr. Preston," she said without looking up from her keyboard. "Can I help you?" "You towed my truck, Karen. Where the hell is it?" She blinked slowly. The board voted unanimously to have it removed. Diesel trucks aren't permitted on residential driveways according to our new Eco-Initiative clause. "What Eco-Initiative clause?" I snapped. She smiled like a shark. "Page 87 of the revised bylaws. Passed 2 weeks ago." "Are you kidding me? You can't tow my truck. I own it. I work with it." "You're welcome to store it off-site. You were warned." "No, I wasn't." I clenched my jaw so tight I thought a molar might crack. "Karen, do you have any idea how much damage can happen when a truck like that is hauled improperly?" She didn't blink. Not my concern. 2 hours later, I was standing in front of Lenny's lot, the skeezy impound place they'd used. My truck was there scratched. The tailgate misaligned. The left rearview mirror snapped clean off. $3,800 just for the body damage. Another $1,500 in mechanical alignment. Oh, and the def tank? Cracked. That's $4,200. I was seething. This was bigger than a misunderstanding. This was Karen using her HOA power to exact personal control. And this wasn't going to end quietly. I wasn't some clueless retiree who'd roll over. I was a mechanic, a former Marine, and I'd grown up on land where people solved things face to face. Karen wanted a war? She just picked the wrong guy. I started with the paperwork. The HOA's Eco-Initiative clause? Invalid. It had never been properly ratified. I found that out after a friend of mine, Rachel, a local real estate lawyer I'd helped rebuild her Jeep last summer, pulled the actual HOA meeting records. There was no quorum at the vote, Rachel told me, flipping through pages. It's not enforceable. This clause is trash. And the towing? Also illegal. The HOA had no authority to remove personal property without proper notice, especially when parked on private property. They hadn't even issued a single written warning. I smiled for the first time in days. Time to turn the tables. I wrote a formal claim letter demanding $20,000 in damages, repairs, lost work hours, and legal fees. I delivered it straight to Karen's face. She turned red like a busted radiator. "You're extorting the HOA now?" "No, Karen. I'm giving you a chance to fix this before I sue your little kingdom into bankruptcy." She scoffed. "You wouldn't dare." Rachel filed the lawsuit the next day. The whole neighborhood started talking. People I didn't even know approached me at the gas station or grocery store to share their own Karen horror stories. A single mom whose trampoline had been forcibly removed. A veteran whose flagpole had been flagged for being too aggressive. A retiree fined for planting sunflowers instead of HOA-approved geraniums. Then came the twist. The mechanic who towed my truck, Lewis, called me out of the blue. "Hey, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Karen specifically requested your vehicle be moved rough. Said it'd teach you a lesson." I didn't like it, but I got mouths to feed, man. I paused. "You're willing to say that in writing?" "I already did. You'll get it in the mail." I was stunned. This wasn't about rules. This was personal. Karen was going down. By the end of that week, the storm had started to brew, not just in the courtroom, but in the entire neighborhood. The HOA board tried to stay quiet, acting like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just served them with a $20,000 lawsuit and Karen's name wasn't written in bold type across 3 separate counts of personal liability. But the residents? They were done staying silent. And Karen? She was starting to crack. Rachel and I had built the case like a missile. We had evidence. Photos of the truck damage, Luis's written statement about Karen's personal request to rough up my vehicle, HOA bylaw inconsistencies, and several residents' testimonies showing a clear pattern of Karen abusing power for her own vendettas. Preston versus Whispering Pines HOA was set for court in less than a month. But it wasn't just about me anymore. The HOA meeting 3 days later was packed. For the first time in years, the community center was standing room only. Karen walked in wearing her signature beige cardigan and that plastic smile, but it didn't land this time. People didn't look afraid anymore. I sat in the front row, arms crossed, waiting. Karen cleared her throat at the mic. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that tonight's agenda is strictly limited to lawn care ordinances and seasonal decorations. A voice called out from the back, "What about the lawsuit?" She blinked. "That's not an item on the agenda." I stood up. "It is now." Murmurs echoed through the room. I walked up to the mic. "My name is Mitch Preston. I've lived here for 4 years. I'm a veteran. I run a mobile diesel repair business, and I've never caused a single problem for anyone in this neighborhood. Until Karen here decided my work truck was a threat to her fantasy HOA utopia." I pulled out Luis's signed affidavit. "This is a sworn statement from the tow driver Karen personally contacted. She told him to damage my truck to teach me a lesson. That's not an HOA bylaw. That's malice." Karen's face turned blotchy red. "You're lying," she hissed. "Then why do I have photos, receipts, and now 5 neighbors coming forward with their own stories of harassment?" Gasps. Whispers. A few heads turned toward Karen. She was shaking now, lips pressed tight like she wanted to scream but couldn't. "I'm not just suing for the truck anymore. I'm suing for emotional distress, loss of income, and damages from your abuse of power." Someone from the board, Tony, I think, looked down like he couldn't make eye contact with her. Rachel stepped beside me, dressed sharp in a navy pantsuit. "And we're also filing a class action motion to investigate the misuse of HOA funds, falsified fines, and voting irregularities, starting with the so-called Eco Initiative." That did it. The crowd erupted. Half were clapping. The other half started shouting questions. "And Karen?" Karen bolted. 2 nights later, I got a knock on my door. It was 9:47 p.m. I opened it with a half-loaded suspicion, but it wasn't who I expected. It was Karen's husband. I didn't even know she had one. He looked exhausted. Gray hair, eyes bloodshot, flannel shirt unbuttoned. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "About your truck. About all of it. I didn't know it had gone this far." I narrowed my eyes. "Why are you here?" "She's not well. Karen. The way she's been clinging to this HOA thing, it's not just about rules. She lost her son 3 years ago. Took it out on everything. The board gave her power and she twisted it." I folded my arms. "I'm sorry for her loss, but that doesn't excuse what she's done." "I know. I'm not asking you to drop the suit. Just maybe don't destroy her publicly if you don't have to. She's already unraveling." I didn't answer. He turned and left without another word. The court date arrived. Karen showed up looking like a ghost of herself, gaunt, pale, trembling. Rachel laid out the case like a surgeon, with a scalpel clean, precise, unforgiving. "Your Honor," she said, "our client's truck was towed without legal authority, without prior notice, and under a false pretense and unenforceable bylaw change." She held up the affidavit. "And this statement shows the HOA president not only arranged the tow, but instructed the operator to intentionally damage the vehicle. This is a clear act of targeted retaliation and an abuse of power." The HOA's lawyer tried to shift blame, claiming Karen acted independently and the board had no knowledge of her actions. But Rachel was ready for that too. Then why are there 5 separate complaints from homeowners detailing similar acts of intimidation and property interference, all directed by Karen, all ignored by the board? The judge, an older woman with steel-gray hair and glasses low on her nose, looked furious.
"Where's Miss Karen Whitmore?" she asked. Karen stood slowly.
"Ms. Whitmore," the judge said, "do you understand that personal retaliation under the guise of HOA enforcement is not only unethical, it's illegal?"
Karen nodded, voice barely a whisper. "Yes, Your Honor."
The judge paused, then turned to me. "Mr. Preston, do you wish to pursue full damages and a jury trial? Or would you entertain a mediated resolution?" I stood, looked at Karen, thought of her husband, thought of the others who'd been hurt by her, not just me. "I want my truck repaired. I want an apology in writing. And I want her removed as HOA president. Permanently. And the money?"
I glanced at Rachel, then back at the judge.
$20,000 in damages. Or we go full trial. Karen didn't even argue. She just nodded once, slowly.
1 week later, the check arrived. $20,000. Signed by the HOA Treasury and a formal statement attached, removing Karen from her post, banning her from holding any HOA authority again. The apology letter was stiff but real.
But what mattered most was what happened after.
Karen moved out 2 months later.
The board restructured. New elections were held. And guess what?
I got nominated. I didn't want it not at first. But the neighbors insisted.
"We need someone real," Tony had said. "Someone who's lived through the worst of it." So now I help write the rules. Fair rules. Transparent. Human. And the best part?
Diesel trucks are allowed as they should be.
But if I'm honest, the victory didn't taste sweet at first. I didn't feel like celebrating. It all felt too bitter. Until one afternoon, I was working on an old F-250 for a neighbor when a little boy across the street, maybe 10 years old, came over and said, "Mister, I heard you beat the bossy lady with the rules. My mom says you saved our backyard treehouse."
I looked at him, then up at the tree. Karen had tried to fine that family for building it without permission. I grinned. "Well, buddy, I guess I did." The news of Karen's resignation didn't just stay within our neighborhood. A local blog that covered suburban scandals picked up the court case and ran with it.
HOA president resigns after illegal tow. Forced to pay $20,000 in damages.
It went viral. People from other communities started reaching out to me. A guy in Arizona said his HOA tried banning pickup trucks altogether. A woman from Florida shared a video of her HOA fining her for having a rescue dog that looked aggressive. It was like someone had pulled the pin from a nationwide grenade.
But here at home, the dominoes kept falling.
The HOA board held an emergency audit. Rachel helped residents demand a financial review, and what they uncovered was a firestorm. Karen had been misappropriating HOA funds for years. She'd billed the community for maintenance, which turned out to be landscaping upgrades to her own backyard. She had the HOA reimburse her for office supplies that included luxury pens, personal printer ink, and an entire standing desk setup that mysteriously vanished after her resignation. There were reimbursement records for restaurant dinners that she had logged as community relations.
Tony, one of the quieter board members, resigned in shame. 2 others followed.
By the end of the month, the entire HOA board was dissolved, pending a complete re-election. It was official, the kingdom had crumbled. I thought that would be the end of it.
But then came the knock on my door.
Again.
Only this time, it wasn't Karen's husband, it was Karen.
She stood outside in a plain hoodie, no pearls, no manicured nails, just messy hair and tired eyes. I didn't say anything. "I'm not here to fight," she said, voice thin. "Can I talk?" I should have told her no. Every part of me wanted to slam the door. But curiosity is a strange thing. I let her sit at the edge of my porch. "I lost control," she said. "After my son passed, everything spun out. I didn't know how to grieve. The HOA gave me something to control. Something to make orderly. I stayed quiet.
I know what I did to you was wrong. I know what I did to a lot of people was wrong. But I think it needed to happen this way. For me to see it."
I studied her. This woman who had ruined people's lives over mailbox colors and truck engines. This woman who cost me thousands in work, months of stress, and a shattered sense of peace. But also a woman with a dead son, and pain she buried under power trips and fake bylaws. "What do you want from me, Karen?" I finally asked. She shook her head. "Nothing. Just to say I'm sorry. Really sorry. You were right to fight back." I looked away. "You nearly broke people." "I know. And I have to live with that." She stood, then hesitated. "I'm leaving town next week. My husband's got a job in Montana. I just wanted to say goodbye." I let her go without a word. Maybe she was lying. Maybe she wasn't. But at that moment, I didn't need revenge. I already had justice. What I needed now was peace. A month later, we held a town-wide barbecue at the lake near the community trail. For the first time, it felt like a real neighborhood. Kids ran barefoot through the grass, older folks sat in folding chairs with sweet tea and stories, and my truck, shiny, fixed, and parked right up front, was the unofficial mascot of rebellion. Rachel stood beside me, sunglasses on, sipping lemonade. "So," she said, nudging me, "how does it feel to be the accidental HOA hero?" "I'd rather be the guy under a hood with a wrench." She smirked. Well, the guy with a wrench might have just started a movement. Turns out she was right. 3 months later, I helped found a nonprofit with her called Homeowners for Honest HOAs. We gave people legal resources, shared horror stories, and pushed for actual policy changes. We weren't anti-HOA. We were anti-abuse. That diesel truck Karen tried to erase? We made it the symbol of standing your ground. But most importantly, I got my life back. One day, I walked past the old community center, now renamed Liberty Hall. On the side was a mural painted by some of the local teens. It showed an open driveway, a pickup truck, a shattered lock, and a treehouse in the background. Right in the middle, on a painted wooden sign, was scrawled, "Respect lives here." Underneath, in tiny letters, "Inspired by the Preston case." I laughed. But here's the thing. If you're reading this and you've ever felt powerless in your own neighborhood, ever felt like you were one Karen away from losing your peace, listen to me. Stand your ground. Don't let rules become weapons. Don't let fake power ruin real people. Sometimes, all it takes is one diesel truck, one pushback, one voice to say, "Not this time." And if that voice is yours, well, don't be afraid to use it. Have you ever had to stand up to an HOA or a Karen-type authority figure? Where's the line between keeping order and abusing power? Let's talk about it.